Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Damage Report under lockdown. It's a Tuesday. Do you know what that means? On the show, joining us once again, Jordan Uhl is here. How's it going, Jordan?
John, it's going well. Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you here. The last time you were here, by the way, I just want to do a quick plug for this. It's no big deal. Everyone calm down. But the last time you were here, you previewed that we were going to be doing, I was going to be participating in your awesome Fortnite charity stream, which
Yeah.
since happened, and you hosted it for what seemed like 2 full days you were playing. And it was a huge success, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It was like 30 hours of Fortnite. I took a break to sleep, which I think was a good idea in retrospect. But yeah, we played for 30 hours. We went in with a goal of raising 5,000 for healthcare for the homeless, an organization in Baltimore, and we ended up raising over 7,000. So yeah, definitely successful. Had a lot of fun, and thank you for playing. We got a win, by the way. You, Brett, and me.
Oh, I was gonna mention that. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. All right.
No, but that's crazy. I mean, you raised a ton of money. I saw AOC did like an impromptu Instagram live stream where she was trying to raise money for a cause, and she raised like 17,000. But she's AOC. You raised like half an AOC. That's pretty amazing for anyone who's not AOC. And that's so it was awesome to see that, and everybody had a ton of fun. As you said, we got a win, and I've since learned that you win at that game a lot, but I don't. So, but do you know what happened? So we played and we got our one win, and after that, at some point within the last week, I played again. Myself and Brett and Brett's wife squatted up, and we won twice more. So I think it's
Whoa.
rubbed off, and I think I'm ready to go pro. Ninja,
You
here I
are.
come. He probably doesn't even play anymore. What does he play? I don't know, probably
I think he
Warzone or
does. I
something.
think he still plays.
Oh,
He
he
still
does?
plays
Okay.
Fortnite. Yeah.
Do you think he likes it? I wonder. Anyway, you know what I don't like? The news, and that's what we've got for you today. So Jordan and I are going to be breaking down a bunch of stories as we go through this hour. We're going to be starting off catching up just a little bit with the presidential coronavirus briefing yesterday, and then moving right into what is currently ongoing. I believe it's still happening, is a number of different health officials are testifying before the Senate right now about the coronavirus response. We've got updates on the spread of coronavirus amongst those doing the anti-lockdown protests, and what the hell is going on with Elon Musk. We're gonna try to figure that out. And if you're already watching, feel free to hit the like button. Would be great. Help spread the stream. Let more people know about the show going on. You can send us comments and tweets at hashtag TDR Live, super chats, and you can also comment along on Twitch. And we've got people watching all of those, so Jordan and I can respond to the comments that you send in. Looks like a bunch are coming in right now. I will read one. Is it already in there? Mark
There.
Robertson says, "Can we get a look at one of Jordan's guitars at 1,000 likes?"
Sure. Yeah. If
Awesome.
you're fine with it. Yeah.
So as an alternative to
Hit
the
that like
traditional
button.
dog or cat, exactly. Maybe we'll see. I was gonna say like a cool slang term for guitar, but honestly, I don't even know what they're called. What do you call them?
I mean, you can call it a lot of different things. People, I guess a term
Hmm.
that they might like is like axe or something like that.
There you go. That's sort of. I was thinking of hammer, but that's not right. Anyway, there you go. I knew it was something traditionally wielded by dwarves. Okay, so 1,000 likes, and maybe we'll get an axe for you. I'd like to see it because I just watched Fury Road over the weekend, and that Doof Warrior with his that was cool.
Oh,
So
it spits out the napalm or the fire.
exactly, I'm
Yeah,
looking
that
to
is
see
sick.
more of that. Anyway, with that, why don't we jump into the news, Jordan? Yesterday, Donald Trump held one of his coronavirus press briefings, and sort of the big headline of the day was that Trump effectively declared mission accomplished over this entire thing. The particular quote that I loved, and they did briefly, they had tweeted it out, and then eventually took the tweet down, had a video of him saying, "We have met the moment, and we have prevailed." Jordan, have we met the moment, and or have we prevailed?
John, I would say no. I would say it's a bit premature. When we're months, if not years, away from a vaccine completely eradicating this virus, and it's hard to resist the comparisons to Bush's mission accomplished moment. They rushed out. It was way premature. They wanted to claim victory, get the positive PR because there's a couple different factors here at play. I mean, people are starting to suffer. People are falling behind on bills and rent. My cat is crawling up my back right now, and
we're suffering in a variety of ways.
Yeah, right. And Trump's in an election year, so he has a ton of incentives to try to expedite the eradication of this virus and get things back to normal, reopen businesses, continue to boost the economy, things like that. So, it was tempting, and they took the bait to go out there and say, yeah, we did it. We met the moment, when in reality, we're still months, if not years away from this thing ending.
Exactly. I agree. The comparisons are fairly obvious. It seems insane to declare victory knowing that 1,000 people will die the day you claim victory, and God only knows how many will die in the following days. But he does have one thing going for him, and that is that the people that like him will do and say and believe whatever he wants them to. And they fully agree. Yeah, no, we've prevailed. I don't care how many people have died. I don't believe how many people have died. Trump's right. We're done with this. It's all just fear-mongering. Let's move on. That's what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, they seem more determined to blame this on China, and shift the focus onto another country and their handling of it, or the blame for the origin or things like that, than talking about the need for ventilators, the need for tests, things like that, the need for social distancing. So it's a completely warped response to a global crisis. And yeah, again, it was just super premature to do this.
It's funny that you mention shifting the blame to another country, because we're going to turn now to how the press briefing ended. And it ended abruptly, as you'll see. Take a look at the last minute. Take a look at what sent Donald Trump fleeing from the podium.
That the U.S. is doing far better than any other country when it comes to testing.
Yes.
Why does that matter? Why is this a global competition to you if everyday Americans are still losing their lives and we're still seeing more cases every day?
Well, they're losing their lives everywhere in the world. And maybe that's a question you should ask China. Don't ask me, ask China that question, okay? When you ask them that question, you may get a very unusual answer. Yes, behind you, please.
Sir, why are you saying that to me specifically?
I'm telling you. I'm not saying it specifically to anybody. I'm saying it to anybody that would ask a nasty question like that.
That's not a nasty question.
Please go ahead.
Why does it matter?
Okay, anybody else? Please, go ahead in the back, please.
I have two questions.
No, it's okay.
But you pointed to me. I have two questions, Mr. President.
Next, please.
But you called on me.
I did, and you didn't respond, and now I'm calling on
Sorry,
the young lady in the back, please.
I just wanted to let my colleague finish,
Okay.
but can I ask you a
Ladies
question?
and gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the alpha male in his natural habitat. They're being mean to me. I don't want them to be mean to me anymore. I'm out of here. It wasn't supposed to end. He was just supposed to keep taking questions. But because those women didn't stop talking when he wanted them desperately to stop talking, he just left. He walked away.
Yeah, I mean, this is routine behavior for him. We've seen, I've talked about this with you on the show a few weeks ago. Yamiche Alexander from PBS. She'll just ask him a straightforward news question, and he'll just go off on a tirade and attack her. We see this time and time again with women and reporters of color, specifically women of color. He feels threatened or intimidated. And I think there's also there's internalized misogyny and internalized racism within him that he projects onto them and their questions. This is just a pretty embarrassing moment. If anyone was in that situation, let alone the president of the United States. And it, straightforward question. And the fact that he responded in such a way and then stormed off is just truly embarrassing.
Yeah, embarrassing in so many ways. A lot of men, and I would say that I think it's safe to say they're overrepresented amongst conservative men. I think it's one of the chief things that makes a man into a conservative man is that they have only a couple of different settings for their view of women. It's lusting after women, being terrified of them, likely because you think they're going to reject you, or being enraged at them. Those are the different settings you can be on, and that's basically it. The incel mentality doesn't require that you're not having sex. Donald Trump has a wife. Still very much has that mentality. That's how he sees women. And you see that on display, as you said, over and over. They ask nasty questions. What does that mean? I don't know, but I do know that it's a question that a woman has asked. That's what makes something nasty, is that she didn't back down. And when he says, Why don't you ask China? We all know exactly why he said that, and why he said that in particular to her. It's now the duty of conservatives to pretend that they don't understand that. That's what they'll do. Denying racism is the main job of a conservative grifter these days, and probably always. But anyway, his turn to blaming China is also part of a narrative that we've seen. I will say that I was watching this Joe Biden ad recently, I think it was yesterday, about Trump's statements denying that coronavirus is going to be serious and things like that. And I didn't like the ad because the ad also is very much fear-mongering and trying to cast blame onto China. But the thing is, we know that for the first month or so, Trump was complimenting China on the way that they were working with us, what they were doing to fight the disease. It's very well documented in his public statements. But now he needs a scapegoat. And after watching like a month of, Tucker Carlson and Laura Ingraham talking about Wuhan flu and stuff like that, he apparently decided, yeah, no, they've primed the audience to hate Asian people. So I'm just going to go with that. I'm going to say it's China's fault. Forget everything else that I said. My base certainly will. It's all on them. The question is going to be, is that going to work? Are enough of the American people going to think it doesn't matter that Trump didn't take this seriously and didn't do what's necessary to stop people from dying? Something China.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's so many ways to kind of frame this. I think one thing to remember is that, we had 17 White House staffers embedded in the WHO at the very onset of this thing. And they were getting reports as it started to emerge in China, and were reporting back to the White House in real time with information about this, warning Trump administration officials about this. So to act like this was, China's doing, and then China kept everyone in the dark is completely ahistorical. We know this to be fact because that's they were staffed and it's been reported out. So there's a few different, you could call it xenophobic, you can call it racist, but underlying all of that is a lack of preparedness and a sheer inability to govern. And what the Trump administration is doing is just trying to shift the blame to, distract people from their own ineptitude. Again, like we talked about earlier, it's an election year for Trump. This is going to be, there's no way around. This is going to be a bad circumstance. It's going to hurt anybody, Democrat or Republican. But Trump is so obsessed with retaining power and maintaining control that this is one thing. They're willing to go like a step too far in a way that other politicians might not, to shift the blame and deflect from their own failures.
And I do believe that Trump has seen some of the criticism. I'm assuming he went straight from the podium to a TV to watch how people were covering his hasty retreat. And he had this to say to people saying that this seems to be an indication of his continued racism and xenophobia towards Asian Americans. He tweeted, "Asian Americans are very angry at what China has done to our capital country and the capital world. Chinese Americans are the most angry of all. I don't blame them." I'm assuming he polled Asian Americans to see how mad they are at China or whatever. No, it would be, how amazing would it be to live your life where you're like, okay, this thing makes me mad. This thing's going poorly for me. I'm just going to make up whatever I want as a response and tweet it as if it was true, and know that when I make that up, when I provide no evidence for it, 20 to 50,000 people retweet it. They don't care if I had a reason. They, in fact, like that I make things up. Think about the collective effect that those sorts of interactions over the course of years would have on a human brain, especially one as so severely stunted as Donald Trump. That he is a bad person. He has bad instincts, but his base has made him worse by feeding his worst impulses.
Right. I mean, yeah, this is a guy who it furthered his career with a show where he, fired people famously for, the slightest transgressions or failures or not agreeing with them, things like that. And this is someone who's surrounded himself in his business with people of the same mentality. It's like, they're complete and total lackeys. They're supportive, whatever, just a ton of yes men. And that's what he's filled the White House with. And that's what the media, the right-wing media and right-wing political operatives have positioned themselves. They've positioned themselves similarly. So you have all of these things feeding into that just warped, corrupt mentality. And there's like now a feedback loop where he's getting these bursts of dopamine for every like unhinged thing he tweets out, and that's leading to things like this, which in reality we're seeing a spike in anti-Asian American racism and acts of racism or harassment in our country because of that kind of stigma that him and other Republican officials are trying to place on China and Chinese Americans. So it's really dangerous underlying all of this stuff. Because it's leading to real world consequences.
Exactly. Okay, we're going to turn in just a second to the ongoing Senate testimony. But before we get to that, I want to check to see what's been going on with the super chats and comments. Let me see. So I wanted to jump to the Twitch comments. And appropriately, the first comment is about games, with Gumbo Living saying, blah, blah, will you be playing the new Yakuza? I have not played the old Yakuza. I'm going to just have to put that out there. I actually don't get to that many new games. But Jordan, are you a Yakuza player?
I'm not. I'm sorry.
We just lost Gumbo Living.
Shooters. I'm sorry, Gumbo.
Damn. Over on Super Chat, Zane said, thank you for the comment, though, Gumbo. Zane said, sorry for the pen joke, but I act 15 even though I'm going to be 40 in 18 days. The face John made after saying that you weren't there on the show, he's referencing something that happened yesterday, was worth every damn dollar. Love you. Thank you, Zane. Zane is commenting, Jordan, on the fact that I have enough faith in our viewers that I don't read the whole super chat internally before just saying it. And so he was gaming that system to some extent in ways you might be able to guess. Zane says, you did say you read super chats without screening. Yes, that's true. A policy I'm thinking more about. Thank you for your comments. And Margaret says, only 1 minute late today. It's like you're getting the hang of home broadcasting or something. Good job. Thanks.
Is that a compliment?
It's a sort of a back. I think I was just negged.
Yeah, I think
chats. So. I think that's what's going on. I feel like I need to do something to get my self-esteem back. Anyway, Charlie says nothing is ever the dear leader's fault. Totally true. Oh, can I briefly say so? What's going on?
I saw the next one.
Yeah, that's true. We'll get to that in one sec. So when I saw that, I mean, look, obviously I just put it out there. I want to remind people constantly that conservatives, right-wingers, hold Trump up as an example of what is tough and what is strong and what is alpha and what is masculine, and that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And so when he gets asked these questions by these strong female reporters and then runs away, I think, well, surely they can't support this or defend this. But no, in tweets to Trump, I saw yeah, he should have left earlier. Yeah, he should have run away from questions earlier. Retreating as soon as possible. That's what the strongest generals in history have done. And it's just so pathetic. But the standards are, they're subterranean.
Yeah.
Anyway, James sent in a super chat saying, looking forward to the Biden takeover of Fortnite. I think I should defer to you, Jordan.
Oh, I want nothing more than for that to happen. You know how funny that would be?
So, what is it supposed to be? It's like he's going to be a massive hologram in-game?
So I think they whoever came up with this idea thought back to the Travis Scott Fortnite event, which I don't know if you saw footage of it.
Vaguely familiar, yes.
So they created a giant 50-foot Travis Scott, and he performed a concert in Sweaty Sands, and you could go as your character, and there was a ton of visual, it was really visually immersive, you went to space, and it was cool. Someone out there was like, hey, why don't we just do that with Biden and put him over the Grand Canyon or something? And it's just yeah, let's see how that goes, please. Let's do that.
Wait, but in game, they're gonna make the Grand Canyon in game?
I think someone just didn't quite understand what Fortnite is.
Yes.
And they just thought you could just put people in it.
Oh my God.
Which, gives me a lot of faith in the digital world.
Yeah, no, because then it's going to be an equality. They're going to have to make Trump in there. Does anyone want that? Anyway. No, and it would be so weird. You're going to be standing in, I don't know. I'm going to say the stacks at that nuke plant or whatever. And it's just going to be him talking about corn pop or something, going off on a tangent. Nobody wants that. Nobody. Put him into Animal Crossing. How about that? That's a little bit more his speed.
That's pleasant.
Although if someone did put a massive holographic AOC in Animal Crossing, I would have to see that.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay, let's jump back into the news. Lots to get to. Today, Dr. Anthony Fauci and other health professionals working as part of the coronavirus response team for the federal government have testified before the Senate. And even before it started, we knew that there was going to be some news made that some in government might not like. Before it started, there were headlines like Fauci to warn Senate of needless suffering and death, apparently planning to tell everyone that opening preemptively would be a bad idea. And in fact, that was one of the first things he hit in response to a question. He said, if some areas, cities, states, or what have you jump over those various checkpoints which he had laid out and prematurely open up without having the capability of being able to respond effectively and efficiently, my concern is that we will start to see little spikes that might turn into outbreaks. I've been very clear in my message to try to the best extent possible to go by the guidelines, which have been very well thought out and very well delineated. And generally saying that the White House has put out standards supposedly to qualify in an informal sense to reopen. And Trump has decided, no, don't care about that. I'm just going to tell everyone to reopen. It doesn't matter if they're following our guidelines. And in fact, many of the states are not. And we also found out there had been a report put together. It was not released, but it was leaked to NBC News, showing that recently in many red states that are in the process of reopening or recently have, they are seeing an expansion of coronavirus cases that the White House doesn't want to acknowledge publicly.
Yeah, I saw some data over the weekend that, places, like you said, that have started to reopen, they're starting to see spikes, where places that have had strict social distancing measures, like big cities on the East Coast, are starting to see declines, which is great. But now it's going to spread in the rural areas. And if you have that kind of lackadaisical attitude, you're going to spread in places that would have been otherwise hard to reach. So I really hope people listen to medical professionals and not Trump or Lori Ingram or Tucker Carlson, because this is going to be catastrophic if we then have the spread in areas that, like I said, were otherwise hard to reach, like rural areas, the Midwest, the Great Plains, areas like that. This isn't about freedom or liberty, and you see this. You see the fight over the restaurant in Castle Rock, Colorado, and people showing up with guns and American flag T-shirts and Captain America shields and a 3%er T-shirt, which is incredible. But it's just like they're completely missing the point. Your freedom is not being infringed because you can't get a caramel macchiato like at a cafe. Like you are jeopardizing the health and safety of others around you. And the workers who are probably possibly being forced into that situation. It's just wait. Please just wait it out. Just stay at home. If you need it so bad, please just get it delivered. They're completely missing the mark. And a friend of mine pointed out on the sign they were comparing their situation and invoking the names of like Hitler and Stalin.
Oh my God.
Just absolutely warped. And I really hope that place gets shut down.
Yeah, and I wish that more of the American people, those participating in these lockdowns, those who are growing more frustrated with the quarantines and everything, although many of these states have opened up already, would realize the national level sleight of hand that has been perpetrated on them, mostly due to the fact that they have made the unfortunate decision to trust Fox News for their news, is that they are sitting at home. They are justifiably worried about their economic situation. They're worried that their jobs might not return, that their businesses might go under, that they might not be able to pay rent or for their mortgage. These are all understandable concerns. And the people that they've trusted in the media have said, well, if you are worried about that, and you should be, take it out on your mayor, take it out on your governor, force them to reopen, pretending that they can't say, hey, Mitch McConnell, maybe pass a bill. Hey, Trump, maybe push for some sort of aid. Maybe $1,200 was not all that the government could do for the American people. But no, they were taught $1,200, that's the limit. Don't expect anything more. Nothing else should come. And even if it does, that would be unconstitutional in some way. It would be infringing on the tree of liberty. Like the government, it's communism, basically, if the government helps us get through this incredibly difficult situation. And it's ridiculous because we know that if Mexico was invading, the conservatives wouldn't be saying, yeah, the government should send us $1,200 and that's it. We can defend ourselves with that. They shouldn't do anything more. But of course, in this situation, that's enough. And because of that, they're supporting reopening that the responsible medical professionals are saying is a bad idea. I really hope that we get through. I hope that there's a miracle. Like right now, I've described it as they are rolling the dice on this thing. Maybe we'll get lucky and it'll come up, no big spikes. The last 2 days have been pretty good with numbers of cases and number of deaths largely going down. Yesterday was higher than 2 days ago, but largely have gone down. But now they're doing everything they can. Like if the virus was in charge of the response, it would be saying, just end the lockdowns as fast as you possibly can. And that's what we're doing. Hopefully we won't have an explosion in cases, but we are doing everything we can to maximize the chance that will happen.
Right. And I think a point that we should consider here is that people are being kind of thrust into the situation unfairly. We talked about it before with the reopen protests. Like, people are now in a situation where, because there's no rent freezes, because they only got a one-time payment, if you're out of work, and in many states, it's difficult to even get unemployment benefits. I know tons of friends who are really struggling to get on, unemployment compensation or get like loans.
Yeah.
There's just tons of hoops to jump through. This payroll protection thing is making it increasingly difficult. They're being forced into a situation where they have to choose between going back to work or going broke. And that's not fair to them. The answer is, the government steps in and helps, or we have a rent freeze, or both. I would prefer both. So I think we have to acknowledge that the government needs to step in here. It's not risking your liberty or your freedom for them to help you, because we don't see the same complaints from the right when it comes to giving Ruth's Chris Steakhouse millions of dollars. No one complained on the right when the Lakers got $20 million. And granted, those institutions gave that money back. But that was their first response shows this really isn't about liberty or freedom or anything like that. It's about power and money protecting their own self-interests. And you are never going to be at the front of those considerations. You are not going to be their top concern or priority. So demand more. Be loud. Speak out. Don't go buy coffee at a coffee shop and jeopardize the health and safety of others. Speak out safely and securely from your own home without spreading this virus, and demand more. Hold your elected officials accountable.
Yeah. Yeah, Lamar Alexander said yesterday, we don't have money to help everyone. But we handed trillions of dollars to businesses like that. It was no thought whatsoever. No, you remember the weeks of public debate we had where everyone across the country is weighing in, is this a good idea or not? No, because it didn't happen. They just passed it super fast.
Yep.
But an extra $750. I mean, we don't worry. What are we, Scrooge McDuck? We can't afford that. And finally, Trump was supposed to be different. That's what his base thinks. He's like a right-wing populist. He appeals to the regular Joe, even though he's a billionaire who literally craps on a golden toilet. And when the people were hurting, both physically in terms of their health and economically, what did he give them? In terms of government response, he gave them effectively what any Republican ever would have. And it's not really our responsibility. We don't want to spend any money. We're not going to do it. We're going to give money to the businesses. We're going to help out rich people. We're going to do that. We don't really care about you. And then just encourages them, uses the power of persuasion that he has, the bully pulpit that he has, to tell them, you should throw yourself willingly into the meat grinder to help out Tyson Foods and, Morgan Stanley and whatever. You should be converted. The working class should be ground up to help the economic elites. That's what the test of right-wing populism has shown us in 2020. It provides the exact same policy outcomes that any Republican would. It's just a little bit more persuasive in getting people to betray their own economic interests. Oh, and also heavy, heavy layering of xenophobia and racism on top of it, by the way. Anyway, let's turn to a little bit more positive news, or at least a more positive individual. During the Senate testimony today, Bernie Sanders had a couple of really good questions that I wanna show you, shed light on a couple of both current concerns and also concerns going forward with the coronavirus. First, here he is asking Dr. Fauci about the current estimates of the number of Americans that have died from this thing.
The official statistic, Dr. Fauci, is that 80,000 Americans have died from the pandemic. There are some epidemiologists who suggest the number may be 50% higher than that. What do you think?
I'm not sure, Senator Sanders, if it's going to be 50% higher, but most of us feel that the number of deaths are likely higher than that number because given the situation, particularly in New York City, when they were really strapped with a very serious challenge to their healthcare system, that there may have been people who died at home who did have COVID, who were not counted as COVID because they never really got to the hospital. So in direct answer to your question, I think you are correct.
Okay. So, look, that's what we know to be true. I know that some people believe that no, they're just counting, like if you get hit by a truck, they count it as coronavirus or whatever. I don't understand how people, well, I do. Fox has said it. That's what some people believe. But no, responsible professionals are saying that it is almost certainly the case, particularly in New York, that it is an undercount. And so I'm glad that Bernie Sanders helped to shed some light on that.
Yeah, I mean, that's the issue with not testing everybody. We're going to see this disparity when we're not testing people or only testing people with symptoms when we know you can be asymptomatic, carry it, and infect other people. So I think we're going to see this kind of like recoil from skeptics about these types of counts. But because it's going to be way, way worse. We should be testing everybody. We should be on top of this. We should be proactive. But sadly, like everything else, it's tainted by conspiracy theories. I saw someone post a viral tweet yesterday that claimed hospitals were getting like $35,000 for every COVID-19 death certificate and things like that. Just like, this is absolutely bogus. And yeah, we shouldn't be pushing that kind of stuff because it was completely unfounded. But also, the tech platforms need to be way more diligent in policing their platforms for that kind of misinformation. Like that's absolutely dangerous to have spreading. And there's just like thousands of retweets, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
So Twitter said they're going to have like a label for misinformation about this kind of stuff, but like we've seen them say things like that before, and they really haven't applied it. But they'll take down memes. I've seen them take down memes about different presidential candidates that were like obviously jokes. So pick your poison, I guess.
Yeah. And I saw they announced that they're going to do that. They're going to like add like a star or something like that to indicate coronavirus misinformation. And I saw people tweeting that that's censorship. They're not even taking it down. They're just accurately labeling that medical professionals don't agree with it. And look, I'm not going to go on for a long time because I'm just going to depress myself. But the volume of misinformation is so bad, and it gets so much worse each year. It feels so futile to try to stand in the path of it and just throw your hands out, because not only is there way more of it than your speech could ever match, but it's inherently, by the people that it targets, spread more actively. These people who love fake news just dwell in it. That's what they do, is they stay online on Twitter all day and they spread it. And the people who spread it make tons of money too, by the way. So it's a great system that we've set up in terms of the spread of information on the internet. Good job, Al Gore. But anyway, let's turn to the future. So we talked there about the number of people who have already died from coronavirus. Let's turn now to the solution, with the solution being, if you talk to literally anyone other than Donald Trump, it's a vaccine. Everybody other than Trump says we need to have a vaccine. So the concern, though, is once a vaccine is made available, is it going to truly be available to everyone, regardless of your economic situation? Here is Bernie Sanders.
At least that everybody in America who needs that vaccine will get it, regardless of their income. Is that a fair assumption?
Senator, I certainly hope so. FDA is very committed to making sure that all populations in the United States, including those most vulnerable, are included in the clinical trials. And
well, that's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, if and when the vaccine comes, it won't do somebody any good if they don't get it. And if they have to pay a sum of money for it in order to profit the drug companies, that will not be helpful. Are you guaranteeing the American people today that that vaccine will be available to all people, regardless of their income?
Sir, the payment of vaccines is not a responsibility of FDA.
Anybody else want to comment on that? Mr. Jordan, do you think we should make that vaccine, when hopefully it is created, available to all regardless of income? Or do you think that poor people and working people should be last in line for the vaccine?
My office is one of the offices committed to serving the underserved, and
So when you're telling the American people today that regardless of income, every American will be able to gain access to that vaccine when it comes.
They should gain access to it. I don't control, I
Well,
think
you represent an administration that makes that decision.
I will certainly advocate that everyone is able to receive the vaccine regardless of income or any other circumstance.
Let me just switch gears, please.
Okay, so look, it went on longer, but spoiler alert, none of the people he asked would confirm that it would be made available for free to everyone that needed it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just reflective of our healthcare system in general. That no one was willing to go on the record and say, yeah, absolutely, regardless of class or income or wealth or social situation, anything. That's a red flag. That's why as we globally face this pandemic, and everyone is in the same situation, no matter nationality, ethnicity, race, creed, gender, religion, whatever. Why are we now in a situation where no one's willing to stick their neck out and be like, yeah, everyone should get a vaccine? Mm-hmm. And I think it shows like the power and influence of the pharmaceutical lobby, the for-profit healthcare industry, and why we are so broken compared to every other industrialized country. This is a no-brainer. This is a yes, absolutely easy question to answer. But the fact that it was so difficult to get people to even reach that point where it's like, oh yeah, I'd like to, but it's out of my hands. No. You say you fight tooth and nail to do it because it's the right thing to do. And it really underscores the need for Medicare for all in the United States.
Now, Jordan, you say it's a no-brainer, but what if you held millions of dollars in stock in the company that the government approves to manufacture and distribute the vaccine? Would it be a brainer then?
A little bit tougher then.
Yeah, that's the thing. Unfortunately, it would be. And right now they're considering multiple different potential vaccines made by multiple different companies. At some point, they're going to pull the trigger on one or more of them. Trump and other people in government are going to know what those companies are. So hypothetically, they could purchase stock because we've decided as a country that it's totally cool for our elected representatives to have a financial stake in companies that their legislation and executive orders affect. And so then why would he order that it be free? Why would he use government resources to produce and distribute it? Why would he do that? I mean, look, if he cared about the people, he would do it. If he was the populist he's made out to be, he would do it. But no, he wants the money, and furthermore, he wants everyone else he knows, all the other rich a-holes he knows, to make bank off of this. So I'm glad that Bernie asked the question. I mean, most of the people he's asking of, they probably, like, if it was up to them, they might make it available free, but it's not up to them. And I'm glad that Bernie made clear, if it gets covered, and it probably won't get covered, that no, there are no plans right now to make it available free or potentially even subsidized. It is probably going to end up being expensive, and that means that even once we reach the miraculous result of having a vaccine, you're going to have some chunk of the country that believes that vaccines are a plot hatched between Bill Gates and the devil, and you're going to have a much bigger part of the country that won't be able to afford it, or is going to have to make incredibly difficult financial situations where it's, do I pay my rent or do I get the vaccine for my kids? Do I have food this week or do I have the vaccine for myself and my spouse? That's the sort of decision that they're setting us up for.
Yeah, I mean, it's only going to make things worse, and it's only going to make this kind of social distancing and, augmented commercial situations, they're only going to elongate that. So the greed is going to make the problem worse. The corporate greed, the pharmaceutical greed, the investor greed. It's just only going to make matters worse for us. And you're going to see around the world people just accept it and distribute it for free or for low cost, or make it accessible and available for everybody, regardless of income or class. And because we're a broken society, we're not going to do that. So a handful of rich pharmaceutical billionaires can get even richer.
100%. Okay, let's turn now very briefly, before we move on to other news, to some of the super chats with Hanny Banani saying, I'd bet at least the amount of this super chat that Trump couldn't name 5 Chinese Americans he knows personally. Or even if he could. I mean, look, Trump can know people and still fear-mongering about them. Like, it's all contingent with Trump. Sinper says, if they put that hologram in Fortnite, everyone will stop and shoot at it. That's true. In a lot of those big events, though, your guns are disabled. I was there for the big switch over to the new world, and Yeah, you couldn't shoot at the Big Macs and everything. Michael says, if you don't wear a mask and or practice social distancing, you're impeding on others' future right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Stop acknowledging truths. Cujo says, John, fortitude save versus Corona. Nice little D&D reference there. Laura Adams, thank you for your emoji. Tony says, a bad system destroys good people. A quote from Gary Mottershed, thank you. Joe, thank you for your super chat. John's Venn diagram of desire says, thank you, John. The Scrooge McDuck image of Republican senators and Trump diving into and swimming in a bin of money and saying they can't help everyone is spot on. Thank you. Okay. And Brady Green says, COVID-19 endorses Trump. We'll see. Maybe it'll fund some advertisements. Okay, we've got a couple more stories to get to, so why don't we jump right into the next one. Just a few weeks ago, as anti-lockdown protests start to spread through multiple, generally blue states, that's the pattern I noticed, we predicted at the time that because many of these individuals weren't social distancing, they weren't wearing masks, they were crowding into small areas, it is likely that a few weeks after that, we would see cases of coronavirus start to spread amongst those who participated in these protests. And it turns out that there's data indicating that exactly that has happened. 72 individuals who tested positive for COVID-19 in Wisconsin recently attended a, quote, large gathering before their diagnosis. We have a little bit more information from spokesperson Jennifer Miller of the DHS saying, we were able to pull some limited data out of 1,986 cases with onset or diagnosis on or after April 26th. There were 72 cases who reported attending a large gathering. And understand that at some of these big protests, only 1/3 of protesters were said to be wearing masks at the event. Now, Jordan, we can't say definitively that that they got it at the lockdown protest they were at, but considering that other large gatherings weren't happening, and we know that people weren't socially distancing, it seems reasonable to assume that a large chunk of those can probably be attributed to those events.
Yeah, we could absolutely infer that's where it came from, which is sad because, I think for some of those folks, they're thrust into this situation like we talked about earlier, where some people really do need income because they're struggling. I wouldn't say all of them, and I think there's some people who are exploiting this movement for, Second Amendment reasons or things like that, or, we've seen, like we've talked about before, we've seen elements of other groups like the 3%ers showing up and things like that. But there are some people who are duped by this rhetoric and also thrust in this situation because the government is not helping them. And we have Republican officials blocking any aid for these people because, they're there to represent business owners and capitalist interests. So it doesn't actually matter to them that these people are in an unsafe situation, both in the protest or going back to work early. They just want people to get back to work because it helps business owners, it helps the economy, and ultimately helps investors. So people are unfairly put in this situation. So it's kind of sad to see that people who are, of those who are at the protest, duped into being there because they need help and they need income. It's kind of sad to see them actually get sick and potentially risk their life or the lives of those around them. So unfortunate circumstance. And yeah, like you said, the third weren't wearing masks. So they were not practicing things that everyone should just generally accept, regardless of where you stand on reopening. Even with that reopening, there's going to be like a mask requirement. So that they weren't even doing that shows the absolute recklessness of people who attended these things.
Exactly. And we watched video interviews of some of these individuals. And one of the saddest things was the people who were at the protest saying, I'm immunocompromised, but I have to fight for my rights. I just think, you have to fight for your life too, man. Seriously, it's just so sad to see people, to see the obvious effect of right-wing media's spreading of, from the very beginning, downplaying the coronavirus before it even hit, and then continually downplaying the severity of it, pretending that we have these miracle cures so you don't have to worry about it, pretending that you can't trust the numbers, spreading myths about Bill Gates and 5G and all that stuff. And then to see the actual effect of the people that it's going to have that effect on. Like Tucker Carlson's not going to get exposed to coronavirus no matter how many BS lies he spreads on a nightly basis. But some guy who has a respiratory illness, he goes to the protests and he might get it. Those 72 people, maybe one or two of them die. I hope not. but they might. And those are the 72 that have been identified right now in Wisconsin during that period. God only knows with all the protests that have happened. And not just, another, like here in California, in Huntington Beach, there were protests like this. And so I worry that what we predicted at the time is now playing out, and that as these places reopen, I mean, you've probably seen the videos of people like going into supermarkets and yelling at the workers for having to wear a mask. Like there's the percentage that want things to reopen, and then there's a smaller but not insignificant number who don't want any sort of infringement on their rights. They want to go back 100% to normal. If you're listening to the podcast, I'm very much giving air quotes. They don't want to socially distance. They don't want to wear masks. We're going to see one of the deadly effects of that in just a minute, but it's just sad to see it playing out just as we predicted just a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah, it really shows that people just don't care about the working class or the poor. People who absolutely need economic relief now, like real substantive relief, whether it's through unemployment benefits or stimulus checks, anything like that, or rent relief. People need help, and that the fury is directed toward, like you said, people in grocery stores wearing masks or other workers or things like that. It's just it's heartbreaking because people who, like I said earlier, people who are duped into going to these types of things because they need help are ultimately going to suffer even more. So my heart goes out to them a little bit more than other people who are at those protests. But it's unfortunate that this is being spread, and like we talked about earlier, in some places reaching areas like rural areas where it would have otherwise been hard to reach.
Exactly.
So sad all around.
Yeah. And we're going to have to, I'm watching every day, like we're getting towards where some of these reopenings would have had that 2-week sort of period for things to build up. It's going to take a little bit of time, but I am watching and fingers crossed, hoping that, the people at the very bottom aren't going to be lethally affected by the misinformation that they've been sold. Okay, let's briefly move on to one more story, another very sad story. News out of the UK, a rail worker who was assaulted by an individual who apparently had coronavirus has passed away as a result of that. Let me give you some of the details. The woman's name is Belly Mujinga. She was working with a colleague when a member of the public assaulted them, spat and coughed over them. It said that he had the novel coronavirus, according to the Transport Salaried Staffs Association. That's the union for those UK rail workers. She died on April 5th, 14 days after she was assaulted at the Victoria station. She leaves behind an 11-year-old daughter and a husband who last saw her when she was taken away by ambulance. So just briefly, obviously, absolutely horrendous. We've seen cases of this before. I saw a video of a supermarket where a guy who had been yelling at people who work there wiped his nose on one of their shirts. Like people who don't take this seriously think that it's a joke and then do things that can potentially kill someone. This individual did die. It is going to get worse in another way in just a second, but Jordan, I want to give you an opportunity to chime in.
This is heartbreaking. This is someone who should have had, way more protections, way more protective equipment, possibly. It's tough when you have infrastructure like railways, that, there needs to be some limited service, but, absolutely should have been protected, totally preventable. And what I don't know, actually I can't say that word, but what a jerk for the person who, just absolute psychopath, that ultimately took someone else's life because of just negligence and just absolute disregard for someone else's life. Terrible. I mean, this is just, for her and her union and her coworkers and everyone around the world. I mean, the workers of the world need to unite because this is just totally preventable.
Exactly. Yeah, the individual who like has been fed lies about how lethal this thing is, and so is joking, spitting and coughing, and like you might have in your trips out, I'm talking to the audience, you might have come across people like this, think it's funny to joke about and all of that. It's like a person has been convinced that knives aren't dangerous, and so just goes around like waving a knife because like, hey, everyone on news who wears ties and suits, they tell me that knives aren't actually that dangerous, that being stabbed actually isn't as fatal as, the UN tells me. That's like what we're dealing with here. And so this individual died. But while the person who spat on them is obviously to blame here, not the only person to blame. As Jordan alluded to, this is another case where an employee was mistreated by their workplace and should have been protected but wasn't. So we have a statement from the union saying, Belly and her colleague begged to be let to work from inside the building with a protective barrier between them and the public for the rest of that day. Management said they needed people working outside and sent them back out onto the concourse for the rest of their shift. Both women went back outside and completed their shift, but they had no personal protective equipment. Belly in particular had underlying respiratory conditions that made her more vulnerable to the coronavirus, and the union is saying that the workplace was fully aware of that and still forced them to go out and work. And this reminds me of the stories we've been talking about the meatpacking plants, of people being forced to work at threat of losing their job, being put into conditions where they were working, elbow to elbow with other people, no personal protective equipment. At one particular Tyson plant, over 1,000 people got coronavirus at one plant. And it's because people didn't take it seriously. And the most important people who are not taking it seriously are those who control the destinies of these workers. It's a problem in the UK, and it's a problem here in the US as well.
Yeah, there's capitalists and business owners typically do not care about the health and safety of workers because, at the end of the day, they're disposable. They're just cogs in a machine for the business owners and the investors to get rich. Their lives are disposable. They're replaceable. And this is an example of that, pretty modest requests for personal safety were ignored. And now someone is dead as a result of it. So again, just organize. They were organized, but demand more, demand better. Always supportive of strikes in this effort. Just don't put yourself in an unsafe situation. But on top of that, and I realize this is a different situation because it's the UK, but especially here, the government has to step in to fill the void. Mm-hmm. And because corporate influence and capitalist influence has such a grip on American politics, that's one of the roadblocks. That's one of the impediments to actually getting relief.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, people on both parties in Congress are ultimately standing to get richer. Their investments are at stake. We saw insider trading at the onset of this crisis. It's truly a grim situation where human suffering is seen as an opportunity for profit.
100%. And, there's a great example of that. In Texas right now, there's that salon owner who just opened the salon even though they weren't supposed to. And that just doing that made them a right-wing hero for the rest of their life. Like Ted Cruz went and got his hair cut there. They're talking about it on Fox News constantly. They talked about it way more than the Arbery case. Another story out of Texas is one restaurant group there in reopening messaged its workers and said, you are not to wear masks, presumably because it sends the wrong signal about how safe it is there. That was not a huge story on Fox, but that is like a decision to try to maximize profit, and I think a wrong one. I don't think it will work, knowing that it puts your workers at risk of getting sick and dying. And that's just the norm. Like across the country, you are going to have to hope, once the local and the state ordinances pass, you're going to have to hope that the person who signs your paycheck takes it seriously. Because if they don't, you could lose your job, you could lose your home or your apartment, you could also lose your life. That's a system that we've set up. And the people in charge aren't going to challenge it.
Do they wear hats or hair masks if they're in the kitchen?
I don't know.
I'm just saying, if that's, I would argue that that's a responsible thing to do. So if you're taking that step but not a mask, there's just some cognitive dissonance happening there that ultimately is because of what you talked about earlier, the right-wing influence.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, one more story. Let's jump to this. Just want to get your. I know you're just a fan, so I want to get.
Love it.
I want to get a simp for Elon Musk to.
Thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna turn to this. Elon Musk has not necessarily taken the coronavirus seriously from the beginning, but he is serious now. Serious about selling cars, and so he tweeted yesterday, "Tesla is restarting production today against Alameda County rules." He says rules. I don't think it's just a rule. I think it's kind of a law. But anyway, I will be on the line with everyone else. If anyone is arrested, I ask that it only be me. What a hero. He's such a hero.
Wow.
But anyway, and apparently it's happened. The parking lots were full. I would love to talk. If you're an employee at Tesla, feel free to contact me. I'd love to talk to you about and get your feelings about this. But Jordan, Tesla's full steam ahead. Well, not steam, but full electrons ahead.
That's amazing. The American dream, where your boss can make you go into work in unsafe situations so he can get arrested for a photo op in a situation where he would never suffer. Quite the guy. We talked about this earlier. This ultimately boils down to profit, because if you're familiar with Tesla's history and their production capacity throughout history, they have had notorious production bottlenecks and delays. John, you mentioned before we started the show that the Tesla 3 was delayed up to a year for people on the wait list. So it's not really like they need to get things out immediately, because throughout their history, they've had long delays. So for the safety of employees, that doesn't actually impact anything. They're fine putting employees into unsafe situations to continue this snail pace of production. So, ultimately pretty tragic, and I hope everyone there is okay and safe, and I hope they're practicing social distancing measures in that factory and things like that. Ultimately, I hope they don't have to go back to work until things are rectified.
Yeah.
But for him to be like, oh, I asked, it's only going to be me that gets arrested. Like we talked about before we started the show, it just doesn't really impact him, because what's going to be a fine? To a multi-billionaire, that doesn't matter. That's like, fines for those types of things, if you're rich, just means it's free. It's legal if you're rich, because you can afford it.
Exactly.
So it's a photo op. Ultimately, it's going to look like he's the hero if he gets arrested. So, absolute cynical ploy by Elon Musk just to protect his bottom line.
Exactly. Yeah. He'll have a photo taken. He'll think it's cool. He'll go on Joe Rogan and talk about it. It won't matter to him. It won't have any effect. No. And by the way, another thing to undercut the obvious fake argument from the right wing that what they want to reopen for is because they just care about how much this is hurting the working class, and they won't do anything to actually help them directly. But they want to reopen for that reason. Okay, so he wants to reopen the factory, and that's good then, right? For those workers. He's also threatening that if he's not allowed to, he's going to move Tesla out of California. Presumably meaning that everyone that works there, if they're offered their job, they'll have to move across the country, but the vast majority won't be able to and won't be offered a job. So they're going to lose those jobs. And I forget exactly which state, but there's a Republican governor, one of the East Coast, like the southern East Coast states, was like, no, you should come here. We have great working environment, low regulation. But you guys are saying that what you care about is the workers, and you're telling him to leave and fire all of those people. How shallow. Like, you poke that argument just a little bit and it breaks through. It's so shallow. But anyway, the bigger issue right now is that Elon Musk, who is a genius, by the way, genius doesn't necessarily apply in this area that much, because he's had a few issues since the beginning of this. Tweeting on March 6th, the coronavirus panic is dumb. Yeah, he's right. It was only like 80,000 and growing. It's dumb. Mm-hmm. It's dumb. And also saying in March 19th, this is 13 days later, he'd learned things. Based on current trends, probably close to 0 new cases in US too by end of April. I ran some statistical models and it turns out he was wrong.
Huh.
But he is a genius. And here's the thing. Yes, he's smart. He made some cool cars. He made a rocket. It's awesome. Well, I'll say lots of other people and engineers also made those too. It wasn't just him. That doesn't mean he's smart in literally every way. This is not the MCU. That's not how smart works. It doesn't mean that you're right about everything. But there are people that worship this guy as infallible.
It's really bizarre. The cult of personality around him is really bizarre, because it completely ignores like how he had a huge jump start on everyone else because of like his dad's wealth. It's just really bizarre for people to rally around him just because he didn't really come up with anything new. He just moved like pre-existing institutions into the digital world, which, being the first person there is a good move, but you didn't actually create anything new. You just digitized something. So the infrastructure within that really was for the engineers and the people who produced it and the programmed it and all those types of things. He kind of just had the startup capital. So I don't really get the fanfare, and when he I can't even say that, but when he shows his true colors here, it really demonstrates the bizarre cult of personality around him.
Yeah, and I'm sure everyone has seen a million times the Simpsons meme of a justifiable criticism against Elon Musk, and then weird nerds jumping in front of it to stop. Yeah, he's a guy. He makes good cars. They're cool. If he ever gets his tunnels off the ground, that would be great. I was excited about the Hyperloop. I just wish he would be excited about an idea for more than a week and a half. But anyway, no, I don't take away any of what he's actually done. But that does not mean that he is right or smart or rational or sane about everything. And so when it comes to areas like this that he has no training in and apparently is a slow learner, just don't take your advice about these sorts of things from him. And unfortunately, many people will, because not long ago, a few days ago, I think, he was on, I don't know the exact date, you can look it up, but he was on Joe Rogan's show, and he was just willfully spreading coronavirus misinformation again. Maybe he knows that it's wrong, but it's convenient to him because he wants Donald Trump to like him. Donald Trump tweeted favorably about him reopening the plant. I don't know. Or maybe he just doesn't understand, but he gave to an audience of millions of people information that could make them sick and that could potentially kill them.
Yeah, it's super dangerous. I think Media Matters did a really good rundown of all the misinformation in that conversation. So if you head over to their site, it's on there. But also, like, didn't he just have a kid? Like, dude, go be with your kid. Go on paternity leave for like a week. Just chill out. Really, I don't know. He can't log off. He can't just take a break. He just he's got something going on where he just like has to be in the middle of everything and causing controversy.
Yeah, I saw someone had tweeted like, dude, I know dealing with a newborn's tough, but this is an extreme, like going back to work, like against the law. Yeah, Anyway, so that's your Elon Musk news for the day. Jordan, thank you. Before we close with you, Jordan, there was a super chat that was directed to you that I want to get your response from. I'm trying to find. Madeline had sent in a super chat saying, Jordan, you flew a car on Twitch. What was the game?
It's Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, were you playing Grand Theft Auto? Nice.
Yeah, I won the... This is embarrassing. I don't know. You could play in the casino. You could spin this wheel at the casino in Grand Theft Auto, and you can like win different, in-game money or cars. And one of the cars was a flying DeLorean, and I won it. So I now own the flying DeLorean in Grand Theft Auto.
We should play sometime. We should do a heist.
Oh, would love that.
I've never done one of the online heists, but it sounds like fun.
It's really fun.
Awesome. Okay, we're going to talk about that at some point. But thank you for joining us today, and talk to you soon.
See ya.
Stay safe. Okay, everybody at home, really fast, I want to catch up on some of the comments and tweets and super chats. Let's see what's going on. Gabby had tweeted at hashtag TDR Live saying Donald Trump is still operating his administration as if this is a reality show and he can just create ratings by making commercials for upcoming episodes. It does feel like that. It's all felt like that. She'd also said, is Elon Musk trying to crown himself the Rosa Parks of the 1%? Because that's not a thing. Exactly. At a certain point, like, I understand that some billionaires have been able to cloak themselves in seeming cool, like he was in one of the Iron Man movies. He's still a billionaire at the end of the day. And so his interests are going to lie in that direction. Stefanik says, had a person share that New York City was getting $32,000 per death and like $20,000 per ventilator. Where are people getting this crap, and why can't some use their brains? Nothing spreads faster than conspiracy theories. Dave says, we have a presidential viral tweet pandemic. Hilltop Ironwork says, per Dr. Mike on YouTube, $13,000 is what Medicare pays for COVID treatment. I guess you could call that incentive to report COVID deaths, or just payment for service. It's cooler if you imply that it's a bribe or something. Matt says, if we're attacked by a bioweapon someday, is 1.2K spotty testing and partisanship the best we can hope for? That is a great point. And a more direct version of the analogies we've been making. Like, Republicans love to say that they're the only ones that take threats to national security seriously, and they are actively, like, gleefully surrendering in the face of the most major one that we faced. Justin says, my Repub coworker has cancer and nothing but trouble getting appointments and meds, then turns around and tells me we have the best health coverage in the world. Why? Misinformation. Very powerful. Rob says, I'm not watching live, but I have to support my nerdy homie online. Thank you, Rob, as always. Hendrik says, mandatory waivers for healthcare when taking part in protests. You protest, you go to the back of the line and have to pay all healthcare costs. No, I mean, like, I don't want any of these people to suffer, which is why I don't want them to do this. Franklin says, cough, cough, wheeze, wheeze. If you can't afford it, you're soon deceased. Ferengi 48. I think that's the 48th rule of acquisition. The bigger the smile, the sharper the knife. Thank you, Franklin. Haroom says, that's all it takes, knowing that we're not going to kill today. Donald Trump and John Bolton should get on the phone and contact Vandekar. They'll find that they're just as appalled as they are. I'm not familiar, but thank you for the super chat. John says, nice Slayer shirt. He was wearing one last time I saw him also. I believe he's always wearing a Slayer shirt. He loves Slayer. Lisa says it's called murder, I think talking about the rail worker. I hope he goes to jail. I don't know. I wasn't able to find out information about that, but there should be something, yes. Valerie says, anyone who knowingly tries to infect someone with COVID should be charged with assault, if not attempted murder. Let's see. Dreamy On says, love the show. Keep up the great work. Thank you. And Evelyn says, Ryan's so rude to Fauci. Some were. I didn't get to watch, I was doing live production for the show, so I didn't get to watch as much as I wanted to, but there were people who were getting it rougher. Okay. Jody Lynn had tweeted, cat crawling Jordan. I get it. I'm a crazy cat lady. Trump has a pathetic way of responding to women. Yeah, I wish the cat had crawled up into a visible position, but unfortunately that didn't happen. But, we're always hoping for a site like that. You know what? We passed 1.1K and we didn't see his axe. We're going to have to see that next time. Remind me if I forget. Anyway, thank everybody for joining me on the show today. It was great to have you here. If you don't already know, we're not only on the network going to have the main show later on today, but also we're going to have special election coverage. There's a special election in California, as well as some important primaries that we're going to be following. So that is going to be available at 6:30 to 8:30 Pacific time, 9:30 to 11:30 Eastern. It'll be available live. It's going to be Cenk Uygur, Michael Shore, and myself. So you're going to want to look forward to that as well. But thank you for joining me, and I'll see you tomorrow.